Hey there, everyone. Kristin Sherry here. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Maximize 365, a year of actionable tips to transform your life. Transform your life. That's what we're here for. So one of the ways you can transform your life is by admitting your mistakes to people. Ouch! This one is so hard, isn't it? You can see this online all the time where people say something and they're wrong and they just double down in their wrongness. It's really kind of funny but sad. So today, and this is, by the way, still in the relationship chapter of Maximize 365 in the communication section. So the quote today is from Bruce Lee and says, "Mistakes are always forgivable if one has the courage to admit them." So simple. Why is it so hard? Well, it's so hard because I'll tell you why when we get in here. So what makes it so hard for people to admit mistakes? It's something called cognitive dissonance. So according to Carol Tavris, she's the co-author of this book. I love this book title. Mistakes were made, but not by me. Cognitive dissonance is what we feel when this self-concept we have, I'm smart, I'm kind, I'm convinced this belief is true, becomes threatened by evidence that we did something that wasn't smart, that we did something that hurt another person, or that the belief that we held is not true. So we have this cognitive dissonance now that this thing we hold about ourselves and what's actual reality don't line up. And that creates a discomfort. And so to ease the discomfort of cognitive dissonance, we either dismiss the evidence or change our concept of ourselves. When someone gives feedback that you were rude or thoughtless, we don't want to change our concept of ourselves. So we just say, "You're wrong," and give all the reasons why the person was wrong. So it's the easier path to dismiss the evidence than to reimagine something about ourselves. So when we fail to admit our mistakes, it creates more problems, damages our credibility, and causes others to lose respect for us. So it's interesting, like we don't want to reflect poorly on ourselves, but it's like the other person knows you were wrong or they know you weren't unkind or what you said was stupid or thoughtless or whatever. So being in denial, all you're doing is protecting yourself, which is really pointless because, like I said, you're going to have more problems like credibility problems and issues with people not respecting you. So how do you admit your mistakes? Because it's so uncomfortable. So what do? So in the idea for action today, I have 5 steps to immediately admit a mistake. So the first one is apologize sincerely. You know what? I'm sorry I lost my temper. I'm sorry I called you a moron. Whatever you did, just apologize. And number 2, you want to take ownership of the mistake. So, yep, that was my bad. I shouldn't have done that, whatever. And then number 3, create a plan to clean up your mess. So it depends what the mistake was. Maybe the apology is sufficient. It depends what your mistake was. But what's your plan to make it better? And number 4 is you have to accept the consequences of your mistake. Sometimes we don't like the consequences. Like just think about when people bounce a check. They bounce at their bank, maybe they swipe their card and they didn't have the money. And they like call and freak out on their bank and like, "I'm going to take my business elsewhere." And it's like, that was totally your mistake to not be keeping track of how much money you had in the bank when you spent. But we get this thing in our head of not accepting consequences for mistakes that we make and put it on the other person. Like customer service people, I feel bad for them because it's a constant stream of customers who screwed up and trying to pin the blame on someone else. Okay, number 5, put yourself in other people's shoes, showing compassion if your mistake hurt others. So if you take these 5 steps, people will have a lot more respect for you. You can turn things around. You can diffuse conflict immediately by doing these things. And honestly, it builds this intimacy in your relationships. I don't mean sexual intimacy, just, intimacy with people when you're willing to admit your mistakes. Let me tell you, being right and asserting that you are right is far less attractive to people than approaching a situation with humility. That's the place where respect is earned, for sure. So let me know. Is it hard for you to admit your mistakes? Tell me about it in the comments, or tell me about a story about a time you admitted a mistake and how that went well for you. So you have to make yourself vulnerable to be able to admit your mistakes. So coming up, we're going to have an episode on how do you appropriately make yourself vulnerable to the people that you care about. So if you struggle with vulnerability, you're going to want to stay tuned for that one. All right, so subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to hearing from you in the comments. Take care.